Hi, it's Rosa Collado with Keller Williams, and I'm so excited today that I have Bridget, and Bridget works with the Inspector Boys. So tell us a little bit, Bridget, about yourself and a little bit about the company that you work for.
Well, thanks, Rosa, for having me on today. I really appreciate it. My name is Bridget. I'm with the Inspection Boys. We are a home inspection company. We cover all of Long Island and New York City. But besides home inspections, we also do asbestos inspections, mold inspections. For those who work with NACA, we're NACA approved as well. And we have 203K inspectors who are approved as well. So we do a variety of additional inspection types and just here to provide as much value as we can.
Awesome. I appreciate your time today, and thank you for allowing us to come into your home. We're all working from home. So I wanted us to go a little bit over why is home inspection so important, especially for first time buyers that they're not even aware. First time buyers, they think, well, if I'm doing an appraisal and the bank is coming in, I'm paying the bank five, six, $700. Why do I hire a home inspector to do the same thing a bank is going to do? So I wanted you to clarify that because I know they're not the same thing. But if you can tell us what is it that you guys do differently than the bank is going to do when they go ahead and they give someone a loan and do a home inspection appraisal.
Absolutely. So appraisal and home inspection, very different, right? And I know you know this, but a lot of first-time home buyers don't know this. The appraiser literally is on site maybe 20 minutes, right? And some appraisers don't even show up to the site, right? Because most of their work is done remote, where it's comparing the comps of the different houses in the area, right? Appraisers, they're not really looking for any safety issues or anything that has to do with the home inspection themselves. If an appraiser sees something wrong, they may note it, but they're not looking at everything as in depth as a home inspector would. Whereas a home inspector comes in and their focus is the house, right? They are going to do a full exterior inspection. They're going to go inside the house and do a full interior inspection, all the major mechanicals and so forth. And the home inspector is typically going to be on site anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. So very different. And the appraiser report isn't about really the house per se. It's more so about all the different comps and why the appraiser values the house the way they did and how they came to that. Whereas a home inspection is talking about that home specifically and telling you a story of all the different things that the inspector may have noticed while on site. So that's a brief synopsis of what's the difference.
And I like what you said, right? There's a big difference because, like you said, with a home inspector, they're in there for 2 to 3 hours. Whereas an appraisal, they're in and out. They're probably going to be there maybe 10, 20 minutes, just really looking at the comps, where you're going to go deep and look at the home. So, what are the top things that you are looking when you guys go and see a home? What are you looking at?
So that's a big question, right? A lot of people always have questions on that. What does the home inspection include? There's hundreds or thousands of pieces to a house. So the inspector is going to be looking at primarily their main focus are going to be the areas that can cost the most money, right? So those are usually going to be the foundation, the roof, electrical, heating, plumbing. Those are some of the main areas that the inspector really focuses on. But they're also looking at all the different components to a house as well: windows, doors, the exterior sidings, detached garages, attached garages. Like the list just goes on and on. But there are specific areas that the inspector is going to focus more of their attention on during the inspection.
So, would the inspector be able to give, let's say, a buyer an idea of how long the furnace, right, meaning the boiler, how long they still have in terms of a lifespan? Would they be able to tell you, hey, the roof, you probably have still 5 more years? So, you guys go in depth of how long you're thinking the lifespan of a specific part of the house might actually last for?
That's a great question. And there's really no solid answer, to be completely honest with you. If I look at, let me use my boiler as an example. My boiler is 25 years old, right? It's heating up my house, it's doing its job. I do regular maintenance on it. But for all I know, my boiler could just, hey, stop working tomorrow, right? There's no way to know this. And sometimes there's manufacturer defects or the way it was installed originally. We can't predict the future, right? So we're there and we're providing you with an estimate. Hey, based off of the serial plate on the boiler, this is how old it is. And some boilers, don't even have a serial plate ID on it, right? So we're giving you the knowledge that you need to know, but it's also up to you as a homeowner, unfortunately, taking care of your house is one of those new responsibilities that you're taking on as a homeowner. And part of that is also maintenance on your home, which includes the boiler. When it comes to roofs, nobody could actually go to a roof and tell you this roof is 9 years old. There's no way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's no way unless the seller provides the receipt of when the roof was installed and the scope of work. There's no way for us to know exactly how old it is. We can put an estimate together as far as the age based off of the current conditions of the roof, right? But it all depends on maintenance. If you have trees overhanging your house and your roof is going to go a lot faster than a house that doesn't have any trees overhanging it. So there's a lot of different components that decide how long a roof is going to last for. And that's something that some people just don't understand either. If you don't take care of your roof, and if you notice something, or if a shingle falls off, with all the different storms that we've had, these are things that you have to keep up with your roof. Otherwise, the roof life won't last as long.
Right. And I know that you're not a roof expert, but based on what you know, what is usually a better? Is it more the flat, is it more you believe that the shingles will last you a little longer, the roofs that are shingles like this, or more the flat roof? Which ones do you think is a better buy to say if you had to choose between either one of them?
Well, it depends on the slope of the pitch of the roof, right? So all the roofs have a pitch, and some roofs, like the flat roofs, like especially in Queens or Brooklyn, the brownstones or those, the row houses, those typically have a flat roof. So they have to have that built up tar roof on top of it, right? They just have to. They can't. Asphalt shingles won't be able to go on a roof like that. Whereas asphalt, if you have the pitch that you can have asphalt shingles, there's some great building products out there where some of these asphalt shingles will last 50 years or more depending on the brand. A typical asphalt, but again, when you start talking about life expectancy like that, the price of the shingles go up when we're talking about installation. So a lot of people don't go with the ones that have that long of a lifespan because the price goes way up. So most people do the traditional architectural asphalt shingles that will have a life expectancy probably around 30, 35 years if installed right.
Wow, thank you so much. Look at it, it's very knowledgeable. I really appreciate that. So I have another question. Let's say if it's a buyer, they're looking to buy a home for the first time and they're walking into the house. What are the things that you think they should look at that should be like their number one priority when they're going inside a home? What should they look for?
I think it depends on each person's, what it is that their objective is, or what they can, how do I put this? So for example, when I went and I was looking for my house, right? I went in looking at, I'm going to do a lot of work to whatever house I'm looking at, right? We had that in our budget. But if you have a first time home buyer that's going in and there's a lot of things that need to be done, just cosmetically, maybe things that they don't like, maybe these are things that they should think about when purchasing the house, because maybe that house isn't the right fit for them if there's that much work to be done and they can't actually afford it. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Let's talk about, I'm thinking more of a buyer that's a first-time buyer, that they're looking at the home and they want to buy the house, but they don't know what they should look at. Should they look at the boiler? Should they be focusing on the roof? Should they be focusing up on the ceiling? Should they look to see if there's any maybe asbestos? How would they be able to determine what are the things that they should look at once they walk into that house? Let's say nothing that needs cosmetic work, because we know that, but more of a home that they're like, well, it looks beautiful. Everything looks normal. I think it's good to go. What do you think they should look at? Obviously, before hiring a home inspector to come in and look at the home.
I guess you're going to look at some of the more obvious things, right? You're going to see, how does the roof look, right? From their naked eye, right? Does it look like an average roof that most people may have, right? Or do you see anything that's wrong with it compared to others? The boiler, does it look really old? Is it covered in a whitish material that could possibly be asbestos? What does the electrical look like, right? The electrical panel, is it fuses? What's the main ampage? Is it 60 amp? Is it 100 amp? 60 amp, okay, I have to do electrical upgrades to the house. If it's 100 amp, okay, it's been upgraded. And 200 amp, then great. You have, the more common, that's what most houses have nowadays and get upgraded to is 200 amp to carry the load. So those are some things that they could look at. They're not going to be able to look at, some things as in depth as an inspector. But also I also listen like to a lot of what tenants sometimes say too. Tenants give a lot, even when buyers are walking through the house looking at a house that may have tenants in it. Listen to what they may complain about, because they usually say something underneath their underneath their breath or something.
Right. So you're saying, look at the major ones, look at the roof, the asbestos, if there's something white around. What about the boiler? I mean, the boiler, I would say you always want to get a home inspector, because a boiler is so different that you won't be able to really figure out, you're looking at it, whether it's good or not, right?
Right. It's very different, because most of the time a buyer, when they're walking through our house, the seller's usually not going to let them start taking apart the boilerplate in the front to see what it looks like. They can look around the boiler, see if they see any rust or corrosion, right? Do they see any water near the boiler on the floor, any water in the basement, things like that? They can kind of be on the lookout for. But the home inspector is really going to be the one that's going to go into a lot more detail about the house. But these are just some common things that the buyer can kind of look out for when they're walking around the house.
Absolutely. I got Derek Hall here, who actually introduced us. He's saying snitches get stitches. Because sometimes tenants do go ahead and start telling the buyer. That's why it's always good to be around and ask those questions.
Yeah, that's so funny that he said that. I love that.
Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry about that. So I do have another question. So tell us, what are the benefits of hiring a home inspector from the home inspector's eyes?
So the benefits are, right now, I think we can agree in this market, the home inspection is even more critical to not skip. Some people right now are kind of choosing to skip the home inspection process, and you really don't want to do that, right? Because the home inspector is going to provide you, I look at, my partner, Matt, he put it the best way. Like when he bought his house, he looked at the home inspection like his Bible to the house, right? Because it gave him a list of things that he needs to decide on. Okay, I want to go ahead and fix these items, and I want to fix it by such and such date, right? So it's a guide for the buyer to know the different items that have to be done, or upgrades or maintenance, whatever it is that's on the report, on how to better figure out the timeline that the buyer has to do these different items. Some items are going to be more of a safety issue, right? Some items are good. The home inspector is going to bring out in the report, like, okay, these are the most safety issues. And then it's up to the buyer from there to decide, okay, I can live with these things, and I can fix these things as time progresses and I own the house longer and longer. So it's like a Bible, and it helps you know the different things and what to fix that's happening within the house. That's the way I like to put it. It's very informative. It also gives you an idea. Most inspection companies in the Long Island, New York City area, they're always going to include a termite inspection as well. So you kind of want to see, like, okay, is there termite activity? Was there termite activity? And what do I do? What do I need to do in order to prevent it from happening again, type thing?
Absolutely. And one of the benefits too that I look at a home inspection is, like you said, there's things that you can't see that only a home inspector will be able to see. So if the boiler is really in bad condition, that's something that you will bring up in the report. If the roof needs updating, and this is a good way for me as a realtor to now go back to the seller and say, hey, we need to get this fixed, or we need to get credit because there's going to be issues. I have to tell you that most of the times when my buyers decide to hire a home inspector, we usually save $500, $600, even $1,000, even a little bit more, because there might be things that we look at, I myself look at like it's not a big deal, but sometimes for the home inspector, it's like, hey, you should have this. It's not necessary or mandatory, but if you do have it, it is something that's going to benefit you. And that gives me an opportunity as a realtor, go back and negotiate on your behalf. And now, can you tell us a little bit about the difference? Because I know you said you do other sorts of inspection. So if you can go a little bit more into details of what other inspections you do.
Sure. So
each one of them.
That's a great point. And so with the home inspection, right, what you're going to notice is a lot of the home inspection is just the home inspection, right? And there's many additional services that companies like us and other companies are going to offer, but that doesn't mean that you need to take all those additional services for the house that you're purchasing. depending on where you're purchasing or what's happening with the home inspection report, you may decide, okay, I want to add on a mold inspection. Maybe the inspector walks in the basement and we kind of smell something, right? And we can't find the source, right? So that could indicate it could be a possible mold somewhere. So at that point, you also want to decide, do you have pre-existing conditions, right? Or somebody in your family, maybe a lot of allergies, maybe, you know, some of these health issues are going to make you want to do additional testing because of whatever your personal situation is. And that's usually where mold comes into play, right? Then there's asbestos, right? So asbestos is, you know, everybody, whenever they hear of asbestos, they get really nervous and really scared, but it's about being educated about what asbestos is and when it's actually dangerous. So depending on the situation, what the home inspector finds, you may need to get asbestos testing. All this is additional licensing, right? So not all home inspectors can do all these different types of inspections. They have to carry, the New York State is very big on licensing, so they actually have to have the different licensing in order to even do these additional tests. So those are some more the more common ones. Another one is going to be a radon inspection. So radon is an invisible gas. You can't see it, you can't smell it. There's no way to know from the naked eye if radon's there or not. But there's a map provided by the EPA, and relatively Long Island and New York City are considered to have lower levels of radon. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We've had a few different houses in Long Island that have actually turned up elevated levels of radon, which means they have to install a mitigation system. But when you go into the Bronx and upstate, then you want to really invest in radon inspection, because radon causes lung cancer, which is the second leading, cancer. So those are some things. There's a lot of different additional services, but it's all going to depend on what it is that you're looking for. And some people have, a background which, makes them more prone to do additional tests because of whatever their personal situation is.
That makes a lot of sense. So will the home inspector be the one to actually advise the buyer if they should do an asbestos inspection, if they should do a mold inspection or radiation inspection? So you guys will be the ones to tell the buyer whether they should actually go ahead and add that to their current home inspection?
So it's going to be, if the home inspector finds like asbestos, we can assume by looking at certain type of material that it has a higher probability of containing asbestos. But there's no way that we could tell you definitively, hey, this has asbestos. There's no way, because we actually have to have samples, and it has to be taken to a lab. And the lab would then analyze it and determine, yes, it has asbestos fibers, or no, there's no asbestos fibers in it, right? So that's how it works with asbestos. Mold, it's very similar. Like mold, you have to do sampling, and then the lab is going to tell us, yes, there's mold spores in the air, or yes, this area on the wall is mold, or it's active or not active, whatever the case may be. The home inspector will tell you these different things that they find. They may say this area over here may have possible asbestos, possible mold over here, but without actually having samples and sent to a lab, that's the only way to know definitively. Pretty much.
That's good to know. And I also like the fact that you saying with mold, because sometimes with our eyes we can see if something has mold, but I like that you saying when you actually do the inspection and you send it to the lab, that's when you're really going to find out if it's still active or if it's no longer active. Is that right?
Right, exactly. Depending on the sampling strategy. Yep.
Okay. So for a first-time home buyer, you're saying, you do the inspection. When you do the home inspection, does it already include also the termites, or do you have to pay extra for the termites?
It depends which company you choose.
Well, we're choosing you.
Well, if you choose us, then yes, it's always included in all our inspections. It's always included the termite inspection.
And how long is this inspection report? I understand that it takes 2 to 3 hours to be in the home, depending how big it is, right? It could be an hour, it could be 2 or 3. But how big is the actual report once you send it to us? How big, how many pages?
So what the thing is that with the report, we're providing you a lot of photos, right? So the photos take up a lot of the report just because we include a lot. But a typical inspection report is probably going to be anywhere between 50, maybe 60 pages.
Wow.
The bigger the house, the more families the house, then the longer the report is going to become as well. But we provide a summary page, and the summary page is usually the second or third page in the report, and it outlines, okay, these are all the major issues that we found. It's not listing every single issue, right? The report has all the other issues that we may have found, but the summary is explaining these are the most urgent items that we feel are, are need of like extra awareness for the buyer.
Absolutely. And now with the inspector boys, how long does it normally take you guys to send a report? Let's say that we go today at 1 o'clock, right? Or 2 o'clock, we do a home inspection. We're done by 4 or 3 o'clock. How long does it take for you to send a report over to both the client and the realtor?
So we always try to send it the same day, but we guarantee it within 24 hours. So, we train our inspectors to get them all out that same night, but we always guarantee it within 24 hours at the latest.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, let's say for someone, and this is going to be my last question here. Let's say
I love it. Whatever you got.
So let's say that we have someone that is thinking, you know what, I want to get this handyman special, just like you did, Bridget. You said you bought your home and you were looking for something that needed work. Now, for a home that needs work, that you can see with your eyes, you need to update, you need to redo the entire kitchen, the entire bathroom. Do you recommend for those individuals that are doing a fix and flip or just buying it for them to fix it to their liking, should they actually do a home inspection, or should they save, let's say they're buying a home at $600,000-$700,000. Should they save, $500, $600, or $700 from the home inspection, knowing that they're going to redo the entire home?
Under no circumstance do I feel like anybody should ever skip the home inspection, because even when you're buying a fixer-upper, right, you need to know what are the major issues, right? You need to know how to budget yourself. You may look at a house, you may see like, hey, yeah, there's electric in the house, but how old is the electric, right? How old is the panel? Do you know all this by looking? We can all assume with our naked eyes, yeah, this is cosmetic, new kitchen, new bathroom. Okay, great. But do you really know the inners of the house? Right. And the home inspection is what's really going to tell you that. Is there aluminum wiring? Right. So the home inspector is going to be the one that's going to be examining these things a little bit more detailed and then sending you this, because this might change the budget that you have in place too. So never under any circumstance do I ever recommend somebody skipping the home inspection.
That's great to hear. You hear that, guys? Definitely.
I got one on my house and I'm a home inspector.
You want to, because like you said, you want to know what's behind those doors. And, funny thing is, I remember when I was going to buy my first house in Brooklyn, I was looking, everything looked great. I'm like, this is great. I went ahead and I hired a home inspector. And this was way before I met you guys, about 5 years ago, 4 or 5. And behind the wall, it's funny because behind the wall, you can see that you look behind the wall, there was fire. And then when you look even deeper behind that wall and you look on top, there was actually fire that actually was in that house at one point. Oh, wow. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to back out of this house. But with my naked eyes, I wasn't able to see that there was actually a fire that happened there. The inspector was the one that looked a little deeper, because we're all such in a rush, right? When we're looking at a home, you're there for maybe 15, 20 minutes versus a home inspector. I mean, they're there for 2 to 3 hours. So they're definitely looking at everything, making sure that everything is up to par or whatever needs to be changed.
You want to hear a funny story? When we were looking at my house, right, I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it's nice. I wasn't completely in love with it. My husband, as soon as we got outside, he's like, we need to get this. We need to get this house. We need to go. Come on. So we put the offer on. And then when we go for the home inspection, Matt, my partner, was doing the inspection. My husband's like talking to me, oh, I don't like this house anymore. It's too small. And I was like, it's so funny. Then I started falling in love with the house. I was like, no, I see the potential. So now we love our house, but our roles completely changed.
It's great to hear. And that's because you were there, you were looking at every little thing, because sometimes we're so rushing, right, to look at these homes. Is there anything that I do have a couple of questions. How much do you guys charge for, let's say, a one family? Is it different prices depending on location?
No, we don't change the prices based off of location. Our prices for us is based off of square footage of the house, right? So typically our prices, all our inspections include a termite inspection, but it's based off of the square footage of the house and the number of families, right? So the bigger the house, the more families the house, the more time we spend on site. So I would say typically an average inspection is going to cost anywhere between, let's just say, $460 to $550, right? That's going to be an average size house, but it changes. Yeah, every house is different. Some houses are going to be more than that. It changes up.
Awesome. And how do people get a hold of you, Bridget? If they're like, you know what, I want to do a home inspection, how do they get a hold of you, whether they're a realtor or whether they're just a buyer for the first time buying a home?
So you're more than welcome to always reach out to us. Our office number is 516-591-3262, or you can visit our website, nassau.theinspectionboys.com. It's just, we're located in Nassau County, but we cover all of New York City and Long Island, and we're here to help you guys.
Awesome. I'm actually adding your contact information. It's 516-597.
591-3262. Yeah.
62. All right. So here's how they can get a hold of the home inspection. And is there any parting words that you want to leave us with?
No, this was fun. Thank you, Rosa, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And of course, if anybody has any questions or concerns during this process, or when exactly do we come into play, don't hesitate to give me a call. Knowledge is power. I'm a big believer in that. So if you have any questions or just want reassurance during this process, always give us a call. We're here to help. We never ignore your call, and we always answer. So.
Yeah. So before we go there, before we leave, tell us, when do they hire a home inspection, right? When is the home inspection come into play? That's a great little goodbye before we leave as to when they should do it.
So usually we have people that reach out to us while they're looking at houses, right? Just to get an idea of how much they need a budget, right? Because the home inspection is not part of your down payment. This is money that you have to budget for. So some people reach out to us while they're looking at, houses. But in most typical cases, people reach out to us once they have an accepted offer, and then the process goes really quick. So normally we'll get you scheduled within, a day or two, sometimes even the same day. And, just depending on what the availability is and so forth. But we try to be there as soon as we can for you guys.
So how big is your team that you're saying that if I call you this morning, I need an inspection later today, that you're going to show up?
We're a pretty big team. We're a pretty big company. We're a multi-inspector company. So as a whole, we probably have about, I'm going to say like 5 or 6 inspectors.
Okay. And you guys are all over Queens. So where do you do all of New York?
Technically, our license is all of New York, but we focus primarily Long Island and New York City. So all of the 5 boroughs and New York and Long Island. And we do go upstate too, but we don't actively market upstate.
Okay. Do you guys also do Westchester?
Yeah, that's part of that's part of upstate. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. So much valuable information. Now I learned more about roof and about inspection, about mold and asbestos. Thanks to you. I appreciate your time, and we'll definitely stay in touch. And guys, if you need a home inspector, please reach out to Bridget at the 516-591-3262. And if you need a realtor, reach out to me at 917-833-0582. Thank you again. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Give me a second. All right, Bridget, it doesn't want to disconnect, so I will just disconnect here. All right, thank you.
No problem. Take care.
All right.